Good late night wherever you may be watching us here from day one. As always, we'll grab the mailbag to start. We do have a new Art Bell interview waiting for us on the backside. Tonight's interview will take us to December 3rd, 2015. The guest is Sally Vanderveer. And to make people happy who asked, hey, does Art Bell only talk about superhero, supernatural, and UFOs as we update the percentage? Another 1.5% gets added to the Boxy meter. That no, Art Bell doesn't just talk about paranormal and supernatural. Tonight's interview with Sally Vanderveer is about the case of legal marijuana. So whatever your 420 beliefs are, you can get them on tonight and tomorrow. Hopefully tomorrow. There's possibility that Friday's episodes could get a little funky. My sister wants to take me out again. She wanted to last week and then didn't. That's why last week's episodes actually went out normally. But she's threatening again this week. So today's episodes went out normally, but tomorrow's might be a little weird. But in the meantime, let's head down to the desert to get tonight's Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell started.
From the high desert and the great American Southwest, I bid you good evening, good morning, good afternoon, wherever you may be in the world's 25 time zones. This is Midnight in the Desert. I am Art Bell. It's going to be a very, very interesting show, I think, this night. 20 years ago, on the old show, I actually said marijuana should be legalized in the United States. And I got about 10,000 emails telling me, oh no, crime will go absolutely skyrocket. The people are going to go crazy. And it went on, and lots of other reasons and other people who had other interests. So we're going to do a show on pot tonight with, a lady who is running probably, one of the biggest pot stores. That's good. That could be a good name for it, is it? In the country, in Colorado, where it is absolutely 100%, 99.9% legal. The rules of this program are simple. Use bad language, I push a button, it disappears, and then so do you. And one call per show. That's all. One call per show. So, following up here, a U.S. official says the FBI was treating the mass shooting in California as a potential act of terror, but it reached no conclusions as yet. The official was briefed on the investigation, wasn't authorized to discuss it by name, spoke on condition of anonymity. He did say that Syed Farouk communicated with individuals who were under FBI scrutiny in connection with a terrorism investigation. Now, the Brits began bombing in Syria, adding to the soup, and they hit some oil fields. It's going to cost ISIS some money, no question about that. So the British are now in there with bombers. I don't know how many countries that is, but it's a bunch. Oh, and ISIS now says they are going to hit Britain next. Now, that was because of the vote in Britain to hit ISIS with airstrikes, which succeeded by a pretty good margin. So it shall begin. Coming up in a moment, Sally Vanderveer. She is president of Medicine Man, a much better name for a store, right? Not a pot store, Medicine Man. One of the largest and most successful marijuana cultivation dispensaries in Colorado. And she, along with 9 of her family members, including Andy Williams, CEO, Pete Williams, COO, are passionate about growing high-quality marijuana in a consistent, compliant, and cost-efficient way. Before joining her brothers in the marijuana business, Sally had a rather successful career in the pharmaceutical industry. You'll be interested to know. She lives in Colorado with her husband and 2 teenage children. So, just sounds like sort of an average person, right? Well, you'll find out in a moment. This is Midnight in the Desert. Come explore in the night with us.
And we do mute, of course, just to make sure we do not get a copyright restriction from YouTube. Once the musical bumper is done, we will return. As we set up the Grand Arena fight. Should be back to them just in a second or two.
On the wild side of midnight, from the kingdom of Nye, this is Midnight in the Desert with Art Bell. Please call the show at 1-952-225-5278. That's 1-952-CALL-ART.
Well, all right. Here comes Sally Vanderveer, and just so you know, if you just tuned in, she is the president of something called Medicine Man, which happens to be one of the largest and most successful marijuana cultivation dispensaries in Colorado. So, as I mentioned at the top of the show, I called for the legalization of marijuana 20 years ago and got sandblasted for it, but I've maintained it through all the years. And so it is a big pleasure for me to be able to put on the air somebody growing marijuana in freedom in Colorado. Beautiful place, actually. Sally Vanderveer, hi.
Hello, Art. Thanks for having me on the show tonight.
I'm so happy to have you. I mean, a few years ago, you'd have had to use a voice changer to talk here.
Probably, and I really appreciate that you're a trailblazer as far as covering this subject on the radio with such a wide platform. I really appreciate the opportunity.
Thank you. You remember those early radio days, do you?
Oh, I've been a fan for a long time, as have many members of my family. So,
Wow.
At least a few years back.
All right. So, yeah, I only have a million questions. Well, I guess everybody was, I want to go back in history a little bit, to the time when Colorado voted marijuana in. That was how long ago now?
Oh, well, that was Amendment 69. We started being able to sell legally in 2009.
Oh, so we've got a pretty good track record to go on already, in a lot of ways, right?
Yeah, we've got a lot of space between here and there.
Can you tell me how you and, I guess your brothers, you climbed that corporate ladder pretty quickly, huh? Or family ladder in this case.
Yeah, a lot of hard work. Doesn't hurt to be related to someone in my family.
No, it doesn't.
No, but we started, my brother Peter has always grown marijuana in one form or another, but then started doing it legally in Colorado when, in about 2007, when you were able to grow as a caregiver for other patients.
Right.
So there was a pretty loose system in place where you could get paperwork from the state and become a grower or a caregiver for patients and grow a certain number of plants per patient. And he was running a successful tile business at the time and did this as his passion, and spent every spare moment going to grow stores.
Can I interrupt this long enough to say that I'm in Nevada, and Nevada is now in that exact condition. In other words, we've passed medical marijuana. There is the ability for people to grow it for that purpose, and that's being allocated now. So it's underway here, not as far as you've gone in Colorado, though. You made the jump from that to full. Is it full? Is it fair to say it's full legalization?
Yes, it depends on where you live in the state of Colorado. So
Really?
it's legal in Colorado. Whether or not you can sell or grow is up to the city that you live in, city or town.
I see.
So but it is legal to possess in Colorado.
Okay, so a lot of the sort of regulations that were there for medical marijuana kind of stuck around for the full Monty, right?
Yeah, yeah.
All right. How did you feel about getting into the business of marijuana? Any reservations?
Yeah, of course. Yeah, when my brother started, I was helpful. I worked with them on a business plan, and I helped them, get some things set up early on. But I wasn't ready to jump into those waters yet. I had a career. I had younger children.
Sure.
It was very scary to me. Both of my brothers are entrepreneurial by nature, very much risk takers, and I'm more risk averse. So they're the pedal, I'm the brake. So
so when the risk became less, you got more interested.
That's probably part of it. They needed me. They asked me to join. They needed my skill set.
Oh, I get it. Sure, I get it.
Yeah, I was excited to be a part of it. It was still before recreational legalization, so we were still medical only. Mm-hmm. There was a lot to be done, and they needed to get some more people in there to help them move forward.
Okay, if I can understand, again, I'm stopping you and I'm sorry, but when you were in the business of medical marijuana, how were the profits in that? Was it worthy of being in? In other words, did you make money?
We did make money. It has always been a profitable business. We went in the black probably in the first 3 to 6 months, which is
very good.
Pretty amazing considering, it's a big financial burden to start a cultivation and a store and, all the things, all of the costs that go along with starting any business we encountered. So, we were one of the first to open and very quickly got a great following because we grew amazing product. So, that was nice for us to have early success.
So you grow many different kinds of marijuana.
We grow up to 70 different strains at a time. We have a 40,000 square foot cultivation, and so that allows us to cultivate a lot of different strains, and that's important because different medical patients need different types of strains of marijuana. So the more that we can provide, the better medicine that we're providing for our customers and patients.
Or just pot to smoke in Colorado, I guess, right?
Absolutely. People have their preferences just as they do with wine.
Sure.
They know what they want, and they're looking for that, and they'll seek that out. And if you have it, then they're a loyal customer.
Huh. Can they sniff it like a good wine or taste it like a good wine taster and go, 85 Boulder, great.
You'd be surprised. There's a new term for that.
Yeah.
We call them connoisseurs. And that's one of my favorite words.
It's a really good word, connoisseurs. Yeah. Oh, that's great.
And they can look at a bud and pretty much very accurately tell you what the strain is.
Really?
And there are hundreds and hundreds of strains of marijuana, and to be able to look at it and at least get really close to the genetics on that is very impressive to me. But in addition, people can smell, especially medical patients. They don't necessarily know the name of the strain they want,
right,
but they smell it, and something happens, and they say, yes, this is what I want. This will work for me.
Oh, isn't that fascinating?
Yeah.
So how many of them are, who's the best at it? Do you have somebody who can actually virtually identify almost every strain?
No, my brother Pete, and I would say I employ 70 people, and they're all passionate about marijuana, and I would say probably at least 50% of them have that ability as well. So they're consumed by marijuana, and I'm not saying they consume all the time, but they're
right,
consumed or passionate about the plant,
I get it,
what it can do. And so I'm very impressed. I am not at that level at all. I can tell the difference between certain strains, a sativa and an indica. But aside from that, you put a bud in front of me and I have no idea what it might be.
It would be fun to talk to somebody who could actually do that and test them out and see if they could really do it.
Yeah, it's kind of a game we play at the shop.
No doubt. And if somebody comes up with an entirely new strain, I suppose you'd stump them at least temporarily.
Temporarily, but they could probably say, well, it's a cross between a Blue Dream and a Purple Urkel or something like that. They would get close.
Okay. All right. Let's get into it. How safe is marijuana? And by the way, when I put this on my Facebook page earlier, I got some really, really interesting comments. And I'll dig a couple out for you here in a moment. But I do want to know, and everybody wants to know, it's a very important question. How safe is marijuana?
Well, let's start out by saying marijuana is a substance that alters your body in some way, right? So
yes.
Anytime we are in that state, we can't say that it's 100% safe. But what I can say about marijuana is that there is no lethal dose that has ever been established for marijuana. So it's not to say that you might not feel good if you ingest too much. You might not feel well for a while, but you're not going to die as a result of ingesting marijuana. So there's not a lot of other substances we can say that about, including sugar, caffeine, salt, all of these things. In fact, I read one thing that said the lethal dose would be if you smoked in one sitting 800 joints, and the cause of death would be carbon monoxide poisoning. So that gives you an idea, right? So when we're up against people who say marijuana is horrible, it's a very, very safe drug. And in fact, study after study finds that it's less harmful than alcohol. In fact, one study said it was 114 times less deadly than alcohol. And we're all very comfortable with alcohol. So I like to make that analogy so people can kind of change their mindset a little bit.
Well, if we begin talking about alcohol and marijuana, alcohol is going to lose horribly in every category of people hurt, of people dead, of people, you name it, alcoholics, every single category, the booze is going to lose. Booze is going to lose, yeah. So that brings me to something else. Great amounts of it are safe is the answer across the board. You just don't die.
Yeah.
I guess before I leave that, I should ask, well, any other effects that you would name that would be on the negative side?
Well, about 9% of people who use it can become addicted to it. Again, that's lower than any other drug. There can be a toxic buildup. So if you are a long-time smoker and a heavy smoker, it can build up in your system and you can get ill. You can lose your memory, right? So if you smoke and have a normal, day, you may not remember what you did that day. You can be paranoid depending on your strain or how you react to the...
That's one I was going to ask you about, the paranoid part. There are those people who seem to become paranoid, usually about the first or second time they've tried marijuana very early on. And they get paranoid. And now, what I would say is, I've seen these people, and they also exhibit some of the same paranoia, but not as apparent when they don't smoke.
Right. A lot of times, depending on the strain you ingest, it may exacerbate some of your normal behaviors, right? So, and paranoia would probably be the most prevalent of that.
Okay. On the positive side, let's jump back and forth. Many make arguments that it increases creativity. It increases concentration on a single task. It really helps with focusing for some people. That's the way it affects them. Absolutely.
It somehow triggers whatever it is in their brain to let them focus on one task at a time. A lot of people with ADHD have used it to success. Some people don't have good success with it. But I hear that a lot. It cures insomnia in some people. Again, let me just preface everything I say by every person reacts to marijuana differently. But in general, it helps with insomnia, chronic pain. There's studies that show that it inhibits cancer cell growth.
Wow.
It's a wonderful anti-inflammatory. It decreases seizures. We all know those stories. Decreases anxiety. It's wonderful for patients with PTSD.
But really, you say there is one study that says something about a benefit toward cancer, really?
There are several studies. The difficulty when discussing studies with marijuana is that because it's a Schedule I drug, we are not allowed to study it as we would any other drug, right? So there are a lot of hoops that have to be jumped through, and typically the studies are focused on the harmful effects of marijuana.
Now, let's educate people about what is a Schedule I drug.
So a Schedule I drug is it's a federal determination of the safety or usefulness of a drug. So to be a Schedule I drug, that you're saying it has a high degree of high potential for abuse, and there's no medical benefit. So we know that marijuana is not a Schedule I drug at all. So other Schedule I drugs would include heroin and LSD. So
that's insane. Insane on the face of it, right?
Exactly. And rational people recognize and know that, but it takes a lot to remove a drug from Schedule I. So until marijuana is removed from Schedule I, we'll be up against all of the major obstacles.
Right.
Primarily would be, in my opinion, lack of medical research because, for instance, universities can't study marijuana because if they have any federal funding, that may go away because the feds may say, oh, you're studying marijuana, we're going to take away your federal funding. Therefore, they don't want to touch it. I'm called every day by people around the country at major universities who have questions, but they can't dip their toe in the water yet because they're afraid to lose whatever it is,
All right, so what would it take for the federal government to become rational and look at marijuana again and say, obviously, it's not Schedule I. Our dads were wrong. Our grandfathers were wrong.
Okay, just one quick second to interrupt. It looks like we're having some technical difficulties with tonight's part 3, actually in Dominion. So we're going to be totally resetting that. We will keep Art Bell running while we do so. Hopefully should be back up and rocking in Dominion momentarily. Now back to Sally Vanderveer and Art Bell from the desert.
It's not Schedule I, and so we're going to change it to whatever. What would it take?
To deschedule it or to change the schedule, I really think it should be descheduled. It would require an act of Congress. There would have to be a lot of coordination in Washington, and the president would need to be involved. So it's not an easy feat.
Now, let me think. A lot of coordination in Washington, not be easy.
It happens all the time.
Yeah, all the time, every day.
Right.
And sometimes even when the government is closed. So it's going to take an act of Congress, literally. I mean, you joke about those things, but in this case, it would take such an act of Congress. Do you think, just as a sort of a question, maybe you're not into polls, I don't know, but do you think there is enough sentiment in Congress to rethink this?
Sentiment in Congress is swinging in our direction. So over the last 5 years especially, we've seen bipartisan support for marijuana for whatever reason, be it the tax revenue that's generated or that they're just rational people who understand that cannabis is not a threat to society. 68% of the American public are in favor of legalization of some form. So I think politicians who may be resistant to marijuana will have to change their minds if they're, listening to their constituents. So yes, the pendulum is swinging in our direction, but we still have a long way to go.
Okay. Would you care to name what you think the next states will be? Probably you're not wild about the idea at all because it's competition, actually. But there will be other states that will do as Colorado has done, and Washington, I guess. And who comes next, do you think? Well,
there's a lot of work going on in Maryland now. I think you probably know that. Washington, D.C. did pass. Hawaii's coming up. A lot of, we just saw what happened at Ohio. They failed because they had a ridiculous proposition for their people. But I think, I'm trying to think of other states. Really every state, almost every state is looking into this issue. We're seeing, I'm trying to think of other states that we have another company that goes into other states and teaches them how to grow in the same manner that we do. So we're pretty active. Illinois just launched this last week.
Wow.
So that's pretty exciting. Yeah, they have a new medical program. Some of the issues that other states are dealing with are the state gets to determine which diagnoses are allowed to get a marijuana card so that they can purchase. So that's very limited depending on the state. So we're hoping to expand the indications for the use of marijuana in those states.
But even the medical studies that would be needed to get this done can't be done.
Exactly. So there's a lot of catch-22s in our industry.
By the way, one of the comments on Facebook was, crime is down, meaning in Colorado, but Doritos consumption has skyrocketed.
Well, there is, it does increase appetite. That's one of the beneficial side effects, I suppose, if you need to gain weight.
Yeah, that's right.
Pretty soon there'll be a skinny marijuana strain, I'm sure.
Yeah, maybe. And I'm sure your guys will learn how to smell it immediately. So interesting, the whole thing. What I want to talk to you about, we're coming up on a break, but it's an obvious thing to talk about. Now, we've got some years under our belt in Colorado with pot completely legal. So, the old story is that people will go berserk. There'll be mayhem. There'll be rapes. There'll be plundering. There'll be increased crime rates and all kinds of things people say and fight against this with. So, obviously, I'm going to be asking you how it's going in Colorado. In other words, has crime gone up or down? Are people suddenly laying around during the time when they're supposed to be in the office, off in the corner, high and in a stupor, unable to function in any way because they've smoked so many joints in a state where it's free to do that? Think that question over. And we'll be back after the break. In other words, how is it? Several years now of legal pot in Colorado. If any of those terrible things were going to happen that those people talked about 20 years ago, it seems to me, well, it should be Mad Max times 10 there by now.
And of course, we'll go into mute for the music bumper. I really don't know what the hell is going on with the software tonight. It is just fighting us tooth and nail.
Transition from today until tomorrow. Sally Vanderveer is my guest, and she is the president of Medicine Man. It is one of the most successful marijuana cultivation dispensaries in Colorado, where it is 99.9% legal. You can smoke it. And we'll get to why I gave that 99 point whatever percent minute. Look, there are people from every single state in the country listening right now, and a lot of them are curious about how this experiment in Colorado has gone. And so I think the most important thing you could tell people tonight is, how's it gone?
Well, Art, I can tell you that the sky has not fallen. I promise. And in fact, it's going so well in Colorado. Tourism for the last 2 years has been increasing and is probably the highest we've seen ever.
Oh, I bet.
Yeah, it's amazing. And not only that you can imagine the number of jobs and the amount of money that's bringing to Colorado if they have a choice to go to Colorado or Utah to ski. A lot of people are coming to Colorado, and I know this because they stop at my shop because we're close to the airport on their way up to the mountains.
Okay.
And they tell me that.
Nice plug.
Oh, no. I'm
I appreciate a well-done plug. That was subtle. We're right here by the airport, folks. Very well done. Mm-hmm.
Well, what I will say also is that the black market and the drug dealers have lost a lot of money in the last couple of years because we are,
all these poor guys.
Right.
Yeah, it's a very good question, actually. How have they greeted this, from their point of view, horrible change?
I don't know, since I don't know any drug dealers or anyone on the black market, and they have not, ever threatened me, my family, or anyone that I know. But a lot of their business is going in the legal direction. I mean, I'm not naive, and I know that there will always be a black market, but certainly having access to legal marijuana, when given the choice to buy it legally or on a street corner, most rational people will purchase it,
all right,
regardless of what the taxes are.
Well, here's a good competitive question for you then. You said there still is a small black market there?
Oh, yeah.
Okay, so how do your prices compare?
Well, they're higher than the black market.
Oh, really? Okay.
Really, yeah. And there's a heavy tax burden associated with purchasing recreational marijuana in Colorado. At my store, it's 21.15% tax on anything you purchase. But that money goes to good use, and that's another thing that's helping Colorado. That money is going toward schools, toward infrastructure. The first $40 million a year collected in excise tax goes towards that. The remainder of the money goes to enforcement and education, drug education. So that's fantastic. The black market is selling to people they shouldn't be selling it to. They're selling to children, right? They're selling it to people who don't want to pay the extra 20%. My prices are higher, but my marijuana is grown organically without pesticides, without anything else. You can spray a lot of stuff on homegrown marijuana to make it grow faster and bigger.
Yes, I'm sure.
And you might not want to smoke that. So there's a lot of safety that's involved in a higher price.
It makes sense to me. Absolutely makes sense to me. I would
There's
think
a lot of other things, good things, though. I mean, possession charges have gone down, obviously.
Well,
right?
way down.
Way down,
sure, yeah.
right? But there's been about a 40% reduction in drug arrests.
Really? 40%?
Reduction in drug arrests, yeah.
Holy smokes.
Well, and if you think about overcrowded prisons, overcrowded court system, we're really alleviating a lot of that here in Colorado so that we can really focus on important issues.
Well, you've got your ear to the ground for sure. So how are the police in Colorado accepting or not accepting all of this? How do they feel about it? Do you know?
I do know, and again, it's anecdotal. We serve as a best practices training ground for the Denver Police Department. They come through my facility, tours of about 20 police officers, maybe every month or every other month, and they're shown what it should look like. So if you go into a cultivation, it should look like this. These are looks like any other business. And there's still a lot of guys and women that just don't like marijuana. It just causes more problems for them as police officers. But I will say the vast majority of them will pull me aside and say, I would much rather deal with someone who is high than someone who is drunk.
Oh, yes.
And they're seeing the differences. And there's a decrease in violent crime. There's a decrease in burglaries. There's a decrease in property crime. So people who get stoned don't go out and commit crimes, right? They sit on their couch and they laugh and they talk, but they don't get in their car and get a gun and shoot someone.
Well, there's people that drive while under the influence of pot.
Absolutely.
Generally, they're the ones going so slow you're going, come on, damn it.
Still not recommended. recommended. We don't want anyone driving while high or intoxicated, but I understand what you're saying.
Yes.
They're less likely to get in the high-speed chase, that's for sure.
Well, it has the opposite effect of alcohol in that you don't suddenly become the new dictator of America, able to go 90 miles an hour if you feel like it and slam through intersections because you're drunk and kill people.
Exactly.
Yeah, that's not happening with pot, or if it is, at no greater rate, I would think, or slightly greater rate than the general pop.
Exactly.
So there's an awful lot to talk about here, and if a state is considering legalization, they can what? They can expect more tax revenue. How sizable really is it tax-wise for Colorado? I mean, are you really building new schools? Are you really, over the next decade or so, how much money?
I don't know over the next decade. On this year, though, Colorado, the state of Colorado is on pace to collect $125 million.
Wow!
In tax revenue, right?
Yeah.
So that's a lot of tax dollars getting into the system and going toward potholes or whatever they put it toward.
Potholes.
There's so many puns in this industry. You cannot get out of a sentence without having a pun.
Sorry.
No, that's fine. I read something when I was preparing for this that once marijuana is legal nationally, it could generate $8.7 billion in federal and state tax revenue. That's a lot of money.
About 20 years ago, they did an article saying that, maybe it was about the same. I think it was about $500 million in tax revenue. That was in the New York Times about 20 years ago. So they obviously way underestimated. Of course, those were dollars then, not dollars now. So
yeah.
You're right. So from that point of view, it's good. It builds schools. It builds potholes.
We created 10,000 new jobs in Colorado. The unemployment rate here is at the lowest it's ever been, or in a long, long time. So there's a lot of new jobs being created, not just in the industry itself, not just for touching the plant or selling the plant, but ancillary industries, restaurants, tourism. There's all kinds of great, really smart people that are doing, get a 420 limo, right? So you get a limo, pick you up at the airport, and you get to smoke in the limo, and they drive you around, and they do fun things, and they'll take you up to the mountains. And it's 420 friendly in their car. So a lot of great business, and several more to come, I'm sure. Every day we see something new.
Wow. It sounds pretty good so far. Any downside for Colorado that you'd name?
Let's see. I guess I'm biased, but no. I know there are. And I'm sure you'll have callers that say, well, what about this and what about that? And that's just because I don't think in those terms. But downside for Colorado, no. I mean, the eyes of the nation are on us, so we've got a lot to prove, and we've got to do it well. People would say now teenagers have more access to it when, in fact, less teenagers in Colorado are smoking pot now than they did 5 years ago.
Really?
Really.
Why?
I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. Is it because, as a teenager, whatever you can't have, you want? Or
I'm sure there's some of that.
Are we taking the appeal away from marijuana if your parents are smoking it? I don't know.
That's another good point.
Education here in Colorado.
Mom and Dad do that stuff. It's not cool.
Yeah, that's not cool anymore. So I'm sure there are negative effects, and if I want to be fair. If I think of those, I'll bring it up.
All right. When Colorado was a medical marijuana state, how much of an increase would you guess there was in people suddenly going to the doctor and developing a condition that called for, certainly in their opinion, if not the doctor's, a prescription for marijuana?
Yeah, I heard it called the Great Back Pain Epidemic of 2013.
That's great. The Great Back Pain Epidemic, yeah. How did the doctors handle it? I mean, did they reasonably give out a prescription?
Some doctors do.
Yeah.
Again, there are some opportunistic doctors who can sign people up and get their $90, $100 or whatever it is in 20 minutes.
Oh, don't get me started on that.
Yeah. But I will say that regulations are tightening on physicians in Colorado now. They have to have a certain percentage of their patient population that is not prescribed marijuana. These are all things that are being legislated.
Oh, but what does it matter in Colorado anymore? Because it's fully legal now.
It's fully legal, but if you have a medical card, then you do not have to pay the recreational taxes. So you would pay the same amount that you pay to go to 7-Eleven or wherever it is. So there's a significant cost.
Well, no wonder they want to tighten up.
Well, yeah, and you can purchase more with a medical card. You can purchase up to 2 ounces a day instead of 1 ounce.
I can't imagine somebody smoking an ounce a day. Is that what you're saying the limit is?
Well, the limit, if you're a Colorado resident and you're purchasing from a recreational store, you can purchase up to an ounce. If you're a medical customer, you can purchase up to 2 ounces. In some cases, they have extended plant counts where you can purchase up to 1 pound or 2 pounds. We don't allow that at our store.
Holy mackerel. I can't imagine anybody smoking an ounce, much less some of the numbers you talked about. Holy moly.
Right. A lot of people who buy an ounce will turn that into butter, like a can of butter, and they'll bake edibles with that. Or they'll, there's a lot of other uses for it. And then if you're truly sick, right, you don't want to go to the store every day to get your eighth or your gram or whatever it might be. So it's like going to the liquor store and you buy 10 bottles of wine, so you don't have to go back every week and get another bottle.
Okay, so now the big question. You have people that come from adjacent and other states, probably most of the states, actually. And they come to Colorado. When they come as a visitor, what can they get or not get?
If you are out of state and over the age of 21, you can purchase up to a 1/4 ounce every visit. So a 1/4 ounce is all you get if you're out of state. But again, that's plenty, as you pointed out.
So this was done how? By the time of the distance to the drive to the border? In other words, you can do the 1/4 ounce before he hits such and such a state.
Maybe. I'm not sure where they came up with.
Okay. All right. All interesting. We're learning here. And now, of course, I do want to ask about crime. That was one of the great bugaboos way back when. Crime would go up, rape would go up, pillage, mayhem, general Mad Max stuff. So from that point of view, is crime up, down? Obviously, the arrests for marijuana would be down.
Right.
But how about the rest of crime? Any change?
There is a change. I don't know if it's statistically significant. But let me do this caveat. If these statistics went in the wrong direction, even 0.001%, the finger would be pointed at marijuana.
I bet.
The fact that, what?
I said I bet.
It's true, but the fact that violent crime has gone down, burglaries have gone down, property crime, all of the indicators are going in the right direction as far as crime is concerned. We can't take we can't take responsibility for that, but you can't blame us either that it went in the wrong direction.
That's right. So why do you think crime has gone down? That must be a nervous issue for you because, really crime could go up or down no matter what, right? Yeah. So eventually it will probably go up.
We can't take credit for it.
No, I get it. But you must worry that it will go up because then you would have to take blame.
Exactly. So I don't know if it is related to marijuana at all, if it's related to, the tides. I don't know what it's related to. Speculating if people are substituting marijuana for alcohol,
right,
then perhaps some of these issues could be going in the right direction.
That's fair.
That's as fair as I can get on that.
So here's an argument people make. Okay, I will concede, they will say, marijuana is far less harmful in society than is alcohol. But that doesn't justify widely bringing another altering substance into legality. When they make that argument, what say you?
I say that marijuana has been here and has been used and will continue to be used regardless of if it's legal or illegal. So this isn't something that we have created. Marijuana has always been around. You probably know people that have smoked marijuana, even though it's illegal. I do. Everyone has. These people are just now able to purchase legally, taking that money away from the black market and providing tax dollars for wherever they live. This is not a new phenomenon. Marijuana has been around since 5000 BC. There's evidence of that in Chinese pharmacopoeias and things like that. So this is not something we invented. This is something we're making legal and allowing customers to purchase safely.
I wanted to note that you came from the pharmaceutical industry.
I did.
Now there's a transition for you from over-the-counter, or I guess not so much over-the-counter, by prescription drugs to marijuana. Wow.
Right.
Do you have any reminiscent type things to say about the pharmaceutical industry versus, the one you're in now?
I used to think that being in the pharmaceutical industry that I was in the most highly regulated industry in America, but I was wrong. Marijuana is the most regulated industry in America. So I had a good training ground as far as following procedures and regulations, but we get a new rule thrown at us about every 5 minutes. So there's that. There's a huge concern in the marijuana industry to treat patients, to help people, to make them feel better. And what we do that pharmaceutical companies can't always do is do this without a lot of side effects, right? So let's talk about opiates. Have you seen that commercial about?
Let's indeed talk about opiates. We're coming up on a break, so let's see, what do I want to say? I want to say that the cops that I've talked to lately, and I've talked to a few, say that the number of people hooked on opiates, hooked on painkillers, is beyond what you would believe. If I told you the number, you wouldn't believe. Virtually the whole town is on some kind of painkiller or another. It's really, really, really widespread. And but the truth, that's the truth. Now, hold on. Sally Vanderveer is here, president of Medicine Man, one of the biggest marijuana cultivation dispensaries in Colorado, where it's 99.9% legal. We'll talk more, and then we'll give you a chance to ask a question.
And we'll actually leave Coast to Coast. Oh, sorry, not Coast to Coast, but the sequel to Coast to Coast, Midnight in the Desert, right there for this evening. And we will pick them up tomorrow, providing, of course, that the show hasn't gone 3 shades of crazy for tomorrow's show or not. I'm crossing my fingers that it doesn't. But regardless, I'll get you the content somehow, even if it does. Alright, we have a 97-7 team as we have just the last couple of minutes. Less than 5, actually. Before the dawning of a new day in Dominion will be called. And Yasmin is not lucking. Oh, she goes right after mine, though. That's a smart move. This time going after Celeste and gets him. Goes after mine, and that's going to... Hold on, she's... Oh, I was going to say, damn it, she just got her health back. Damn it. But it was the last fight of the day anyway, so not that too terrible of a loss, and we'll keep the 370th place. 4 minutes and 8 seconds left for energy. How much time left for the end of the day? Oh, we ain't going to make it. there's 3 minutes and 30 seconds to the Dominion calls, and there's 3 minutes and 50 seconds till we would have got the energy. Damn it, 20 seconds away from energy, and we're going to miss it. Sometimes you can get my goat, Dominion. Damn you, Captain Dominion. Oh, the actual whole Apostle Mace is available. But 6,500, so that's not going to work. Blade Bow is available in the regular arena at 3,600. But we can do a battle. Actually, let me get a stop clock on it. Because if it gets close to the time, I'm going to have to speed it up to make sure. Because if the fight doesn't complete before the New Day and Dominion gets called, then you don't get credit for the fight. And it can cause network troubles in the game. So actually I will put it on speed up mode just so we can make sure it's complete. I think we'll do a lot of Dominion and not Dominion, but Asgard and item looking in part 1 tomorrow. Just because next Thursday ain't supposed to release the information on the content creator call till later on Thursday what the weekend event's going to be. You really don't want to blow any particular item that you should be keeping for that new task situation, for that time frame. You see there's just less than a minute left on the energy, but you're going to see it's going to before that clock hits 0. We're going to get, unfortunately, the call of a new day of Dominion. Unfortunately. And see there, 30 seconds left. The new day in Dominion calls. So actually, let's take a look what the new Elemental season task are, because we should have 3 new dailies. And we should also have the 2 new weekly tasks. And you did see I did actually finally break down, spend some emeralds there right at the end to make sure we did get that 1,050 reward points for the weekly event. So we spent 500 outlying coins today, 15k damage in the arena, 2 times campaign mode using a support hero are the dailies. The 2 new weeklies are 70 guild dungeon battles using heroes, which means you'll need to go back and forth a total of 14 times during the week. So in other words, 2 trips back in time. And 150 missions, it's just basically 150 campaign missions As we use the energy, that should probably be done pretty simplistically. So that's not going to be that much of an issue. Definitely collect the skin cell because that's not going to hurt anything for now. Today's daily bonuses are spears. We'll take our 20 spears. Spare me, please. Thank you. We won't actually use them, though, until we know for sure what we're going to be looking at. So normally episode 3s are ones that run a little long, but today we're going to actually cut it just a little short. As always, make sure you do like, share, and subscribe. Get us to those goals of both Boxy Nexters of 5,000 views. We did get about another 1.5% today, so we definitely appreciate that. Keep it up. And 1,000 subscribers, so YouTube pays attention. Coinbase.com/join/CParse. Get yourself $10 free in Bitcoin there. And Coinbase lessons through CoinBase Earn. Less than 2-minute lessons, 1-question quizzes to get yourself up to another $100 in cryptocurrency as well. Until tomorrow, which hopefully will go off without a hitch, but give me a heads up in time, there is a possibility. It is a great new world to release the Krakens. Have a great night. Again, thank you for watching. Please like, share, and subscribe.